So I left Turkey in 1995 to go studying in the US. I was away for 13 years in total. My first job was with Arthur Andersen, doing M&A in technology, media, and telecommunications, mainly on the sell side type of deals, private equity, and that type of deal. Then that was actually the height of the bubble in the US, and as you know, in 2001, 9/11 happened, which was terrible. In 2002, Enron happened, right? I don't know if you know Enron. Enron was pretty much the client that brought down Arthur Andersen. After that, I joined Morgan Stanley, which is also a bank. I was working for Morgan Stanley Capital International, and I was mainly responsible for their finances, for their investments, for principal investments, it's called. I was in charge of analyzing what's happening, looking at new targets, integrating new targets after they're bought, and that sort of thing. I did that for 3 years in New York, and then I said it's time to go back to the European continent, so I moved to London, still with Morgan Stanley. After 5 years with Morgan Stanley, I said it's enough for me. I should start doing something different. I should scare myself. That was actually the term I used when I quit. And I quit. And it was 2007, which was great timing, because it was the beginning of the financial crisis. And I joined Deutsche Bank at the height of financial crisis in their principal investments group. That's the group, again, that oversees Deutsche Bank's own investments. And since the crisis was already there in Europe, they said, you are going to Singapore. Even though I don't have that in the slide, I guess, because I don't like Singapore that much. So I went to Singapore a couple of months, came back in 2008, and I was laid off. So after 13 years, I started looking at myself, what I wanted to do next. And after a couple of months in London looking for a job, I said, after 13 years, maybe it's time to go back to Turkey. And that's what I did. It was a very interesting time for me, because I came back after 13 years, was with my family again, with my old friends. And I thought that it was time to make a decision. And I decided that I didn't want to work for someone else again. It was very hard for a man who's used to getting a paycheck and a nice bonus at the end of the year. And, but that was my decision, and I stuck to it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I had to do something that has to do with finance, because that's what I knew. I love Excel sheets. That's how I function, with numbers and Excel sheets. I didn't know what, so I did a couple of pitches. I thought of a couple of startups myself, and I started consulting clients on a freelance basis, so I could actually feed myself. But my decision was clear. I didn't want to work for someone else. One day, Melih Ödemiş called me. He's the founder of Yemek Sepeti, that some of you might know. And he said, tomorrow there's a meeting. It's called E-Tohum. It's on a Saturday morning, so I cursed. And he said, you should come, okay? And I went to my first E-Tohum meeting. It was in the Istanbul Technical University. And I went and I saw the pitches, and I think it was, again, the top 15 or the top 40 announcement from E-Tohum. And I was very impressed, and I felt something, and I felt that I could be really useful to these companies. I said, these guys are great, they have passion, they have energy, they have, everything that you need for a successful company, but they don't understand finance, or they don't know what an investor wants from a company. So I talked to Burak. He was more than welcome. He was very helpful. And I said, I would like to work with these companies. And on, I think, Valentine's Day, 2009, that morning was my first E-Tohum session with a couple of entrepreneurs, and I talked them through, what an investor wants in a company. So that kind of went on. I kept on working with entrepreneurs. About a year later, again in an E-Tohum event, I met Numan. Yeah, he wasn't wearing these glasses back then. And again, it was an E-Tohum event. We got to talk. And the second we started talking, something happened, because we had similar backgrounds. Numan spent more than 20 years of his life in Japan and then in New York. Is this working? It's not working. There you go. Okay. And what he did was he started, I think, with a small company, then Dun & Bradstreet in Tokyo. Then he joined Credit Suisse. and then he was in Goldman. He spent the last 9 years of his career with Goldman. No, 13, 9 in New York, 4 in Tokyo. And what was different with him is he's not a finance guy. He's a geek, actually, as you could tell from the previous picture. And he understands technology a lot better than I do. And what he was doing at Goldman was he was working with their venture team, investing in technology companies. He wasn't just doing that, he was also testing new technologies. He's one of the first users of BlackBerry, actually. And he has all of the BlackBerries from the first day until the recent ones, until he switched to iPhone. And so he was working with the venture capital team. He was part of their technology core competency team. And then he moved to New York. He was still part of their venture capital team investing. And after 2008, with the banking crisis, Newman saw that there was something going on, and Goldman decided that they would raise the investment levels for venture capital investing. It came to, I think, 50 million minimum. So it was no longer startups. And he said, it's enough for me. And he was kind of in the same spot as I was. It was a decision time for him, and he quit. He quit because he wanted to work with startups. He spent the next 2 years working with startups in the US, in Estonia, in Europe, in different places, working with them, helping them, raising funds, and all that kind of stuff. And then he moved to Turkey because he saw the startup scene in Turkey. He was very impressed by that, and he said, there's a big vacuum here that I can fill. I'm going to move to Turkey. He took his family. He moved to Turkey beginning of 2010. And that's actually exactly when we met. What happened then was, it's not happening. There you go. We started talking. Our first meeting was actually our first initial meeting. Can I tell them? Our first meeting was in Aşk Cafe. It's called Love Cafe. It's a very romantic place. I don't know why I chose that place. But that's where our love started. And we kept on talking and talking and talking. And first we said it should be an incubation fund, an incubation center rather. Something like Y Combinator. We should set up a place. It should be a nice big loft. We should put the entrepreneurs in there. We should train them. We should get them funding, blah, blah, blah. Then we said, you know what? These guys don't need, we saw that incubation centers were already starting in Turkey. And we said there are not enough of them, but what they don't have is the capital, actually. There is no access to capital in Turkey. There is access to private equity in Turkey. There is access to monies above 5 million in Turkey. But there's a big vacuum between, say, $250,000 and $5 million. And we said we should fill that gap. And that's how 212 started.